This four-wheel drive next to me is the 2023 Ford Everest. If you're a subscriber to Chasing Cars, and I encourage you to do so by clicking below the video, you'll know we've already done a walk around of the new Ford Ranger Ute in wild track trim at the end of 2021, and more recently, the new Ranger Raptor, which scores a 3-litre twin-turbo petrol V6 engine. This is the Everest, which is essentially a wagon-bodied version of the Ranger Ute. Naturally, there are a few more changes than just that, but as you can see by looking at this silver vehicle, which is representative of an Everest Trend specification here in Australia, there are very deep similarities between the Everest and the Ranger. Now, we've reviewed a bunch of Everests recently on Chasing Cars in the outgoing 2021 shape. This vehicle, which will arrive in the second half of 2022, will probably represent a considerable upgrade for the sophistication of the vehicle. But today, what I'm going to do is take you around the 2023 Everest, tell you everything that we know so far about this vehicle, give you an idea of the powertrain strategy, and we'll also take a peek at the interior while we're here, because that's one of the areas where you'll see some of the biggest changes on the new Ford Everest. The other big change though sits right here under the bonnet. Now, Everest spotters are going to notice that the front wheels have been pushed 50 millimeters forward. The wheelbase is also 50 millimeters longer as a result, and that's partially to accommodate a new family of engines. There's still a 2-litre twin turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel engine as the base unit. There will be a single turbo diesel in some parts of the world. This Everest Trend is equipped with the 4-cylinder. But higher specification versions of the Everest, including the new flagship Everest Platinum, get a 3-litre diesel V6, which is really going to give this car a new level of performance and probably see it go up against a slightly higher level of competition than the outgoing version of the Everest. As I said, this one's the 4-cylinder. A V6 with about 190 kilowatts of power will also be available, while there will continue to be rear-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive versions of this car. This one is a 4-wheel drive with a 10-speed automatic. Now, here at the front, what can we see? Well, we've got the new C-clamp headlights. That's a trope that's come across from the Ranger. This one has LED units. It does have halogen bulbs for the indicators, but the Everest Platinum is actually going to have matrix LED headlights that look really cool, and we'll chuck some B-roll up here on screen of those matrix LED units now. Really broad grille here, significantly more aggressive fascia on this car than the outgoing version, and that's before you see the rear end, which is much, much more attractive, in my opinion, than the 2021 Everest. Styling subjective. You can let me know down below this video what you reckon. Elsewhere here at the front, we've got a bit of bright work. We've got rated recovery hooks down the bottom, at least fitted for 4-wheel drive versions here in Australia. And it's just a more bluff, aggressive front end, particularly when viewed from the side profile. I think it's a more handsome vehicle. Let's head around the side and see some of the changes there. The changes at the front end of the new Everest are obvious, but as we start moving down the side of the vehicle, we pick up on some of the other subtle differences between this version of the Everest, which fundamentally sits on an upgraded version of the chassis of the previous car, and also differences from the Ranger Ute. Now, it's a wagon body, you don't need me to tell you that, but that isn't actually where the differences stop here. However, one thing we immediately notice is that the overhangs at the front end are really short. That's because this front axle has been pushed forward here. This Trend has a similar wheel design to the outgoing Trend, but it's not actually the same. Those are 18-inch wheels wrapped in nice chunky Goodyear Wrangler tires here. Now, we've got a functional vent here at the back of the front fender by turbo badging. This does say V6 if you have a model with the 3-litre V6, so you've got a bit of extra cred there. We've got what's called zone lighting in the Everest, and that's controllable through the really cool touchscreen we'll have a look at inside shortly. Really bright lamps here under the mirrors, which basically mean that when you're setting up camp, you're able to generate a lot more light around the vehicle, less need for running additional light sources. Side steps on this Trend model, they've got a kind of cool diagonal pattern running through them. As we progress down the back, we start getting around to the area where Ford has changed, in my view, the most this Everest over the outgoing version. If you're a subscriber, you will have seen in my recent review of the outgoing Trend that I was no real fan of the exterior design of the rear end of the previous Everest, which just kind of felt a little soft and didn't match the handsome front. That's been fixed. You can see the overhang is still pretty significant here at the back end. We've got this larger glass but let's check out the full rear end of this vehicle. It's here at the back end that there really has been a major change to the design of the Everest, and that's that we've got this much more bluff, broader, wider, more muscular looking rear end to the car that really works in my opinion. So here we've got LED lighting at the back. These lights are what you'll get on the Trend, Sport and Platinum versions of the Everest here in Australia. Beneath this car, there will still be an entry-level Ambiente that's a fair bit more basic, both outside and inside, but it's really from the Trend where it starts feeling a little bit more premium, and it's quite likely that the Everest will continue to be pitched as something of a semi-premium offering in this part of the market. Cars like the Toyota Fortuner, Isuzu MU-X are a little bit lower in price currently, and the Everest, given all the premium stuff that we're going to be seeing in today's video, I wouldn't expect it to be a bargain basement special when it comes out. Now, within this light cluster, which has this kind of cool diffuse effect towards this large signature of the Everest here in the center, we do have still halogen indicators, but LED reverse lights in here as well. Around the back, we do have the Everest badge. We've got variant badging down here at the bottom left, Trend for this car, and also four-wheel drive badging over on the bottom right. However, there's one significant caveat, and that's if you go for the Everest Platinum, the big text here says Platinum, and Everest sits down here in the bottom left corner. So they're really, or Ford I should say, are really pushing this Platinum badging and branding that's going to sit on the top end Everest. Otherwise, we've got hidden exhausts here around the back, including on the 3-litre diesel V6, so those outlets are being hidden across the range. Also, a couple of things to note, we have integrated roof rails on the Trend, but if you go for the Platinum, you get what's known as standoff roof rails, which have a separation between the body and the rail itself. A little bit easier to load again, and they can actually be removed entirely if you want to put a roof tray on the vehicle. So let's look at the exterior of the Everest. Drop your thoughts down below in the comments. Before we finish up, let's have a quick look at the interior of the vehicle. Despite the changes to some of the hard points of the Ford Everest, the vehicle is actually the same size as the car it replaces, and that's because owners were saying they didn't actually want a larger vehicle. So that means that while the interior is fundamentally very similar in dimensions to the outgoing car, there have actually been a few changes in terms of liberating a little bit more shoulder room, a little bit more headroom, including in the third row where the roofline does stretch a little bit longer and it's a little bit more blocky back there in terms of exterior design. But here in the front, you will notice another one of the major design changes to the Everest. I did read a bunch of the comments on our recent road test of the outgoing Everest, people commenting on the dated interior. Well, I definitely don't think you could call this dated anymore. You can see this vehicle has the large 12-inch touchscreen in the center, which is vertical in nature. There is a slightly smaller version of that screen for the base Ambiente. The Trend also has the slightly smaller of two available digital instrument clusters here ahead of the steering wheel, but still a nice, big, bright, crisp screen. Speaking of that steering wheel, kind of similar to the current Everest, higher quality leather, I'm going to say, on the wheel. I think it feels a bit better this time around. I was just driving this car in outgoing form, but similar shortcut keys, new spoke design here. Cool new air vents with sort of a wave pattern through them. That looks pretty cool. And what looks to be quite nice knurling to some of the switches in this vehicle, just to give it a bit more of a textural element. Now, there are new seats. So the driver's seat I can see in this particular specification is electric with power lumbar. The passenger seat is manual and actually still lacks height adjustment over there. That being said, I can see the roofline is quite high, so that may or may not be an issue depending on the height of your front passenger. But quality is clearly up. We've got soft door skins. We've got a partially soft dashboard here in the vehicle, and we've got a bunch of new bits and bobs, including the electronic shifter for the 10-speed automatic transmission. We've got a new full drive system and drive mode rotary dial between the seats as well. What looks to be plenty of storage and a few more textural elements, like I think it's simulated, but it kind of looks like wood or brushed aluminium up there on the dash. That's going to differ depending on grade, and we'll need to get a little bit more hands-on with the interior of the vehicle, which I'm not allowed to sit in, but I can certainly point to things right now. So it certainly looks like an improvement from my perspective over here, really bringing the Everest into the 2020s. You can let me know your thoughts down below the video. So that's a look at the 2023 Ford Everest. Those are my first impressions and a bit of a look at the grades and the powertrains available for the car, plus this interior. Over to you now. What do you think about the new Ford Everest? Are you considering purchasing one of these vehicles? Let me know down below in the comments. While you're there, make sure to hit subscribe. press that notification bell, and as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.